The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the Persian rug as Hannah Whitmore stared at her reflection in the gilded mirror of her family's Beacon Hill mansion. 24 years old, Harvard MBA, and about to become a pawn in what her mother called preserving family legacy. The irony wasn't lost on her that she'd spent 4 years learning about hostile takeovers, only to become the target of one herself. "Hannah, darling, come down. The Ashfords are here." Her mother's voice echoed up the marble staircase like a death knell wrapped in Chanel No. 5. She smoothed her navy blazer, armor for the battle she was about to lose, and descended the stairs with all the enthusiasm of someone walking to their execution. The living room buzzed with the kind of forced cheerfulness that preceded life-altering announcements. Her parents stood near the fireplace with Richard and Margaret Ashford, all four wearing matching expressions of barely contained excitement. Between them, like a deer caught in headlights, stood James Ashford. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He looked about as thrilled as she felt. But it was the fifth person in the room who caught Hannah's attention. A woman in her early 30s with platinum blonde hair that defied gravity and a hot pink blazer that screamed, "Look at me." She was juggling what appeared to be wedding planning magazines while simultaneously trying to balance a venti Starbucks cup and her bedazzled phone. "Hannah!" The woman practically bounced over, magazines scattering like confetti. "Oh my gosh, I'm Natalie, your future aunt-in-law. Well, technically I'm James's cousin, but family is family, right? I am so excited to help plan your wedding." James's eyes widened in horror. "Natalie, what are you—" "Shh." Natalie waved her manicured hand dismissively. "Adults are talking, Jamie." Hannah's mother, Victoria Whitmore, cleared her throat with the authority of someone who'd chaired the Boston Symphony fundraising committee for 15 years. "Hannah, darling, please sit. We have wonderful news." "Let me guess," Hannah said, settling into the antique wingback chair that had probably witnessed generations of Whitmore family drama. "You've decided to donate me to charity for the tax write-off?" Her father, Charles, chuckled nervously. "Your humor is refreshing as always, sweetheart, but no, this is about your future. Our families have been friends for decades, and we've arranged—" "Hold up." Hannah raised her hand like a traffic cop. "Did you just say arranged? As in arranged marriage? Are we living in a Jane Austen novel right now?" James shifted uncomfortably, loosening his tie. "Look, I know this is unconventional." "Unconventional?" Hannah laughed, but there was no humor in it. "James, unconventional is putting pineapple on pizza. This is straight up medieval." Natalie clapped her hands together, causing her charm bracelet to jingle like sleigh bells. "Oh, but think about it. It's like arranged love. It's so romantic in a totally non-creepy way." Everyone stared at her. "What? It is. Like you guys get to skip all that awkward dating app drama and jump straight to the good stuff. No ghosting, no wondering if he's going to text back. Boom, instant relationship status." Richard Ashford, a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a Brooks Brothers catalog, cleared his throat. "The merger between Whitmore Industries and Ashford Enterprises will create the largest maritime shipping conglomerate on the East Coast. This union would solidify our partnership." "Union," Hannah repeated flatly. "You're talking about my life like it's a corporate acquisition." "Because it kind of is," James said quietly, then immediately looked like he wanted to disappear into the Persian rug. Margaret Ashford gasped. "James." "What?" "We're all thinking it. Might as well say it out loud." Hannah studied James's face. He had nice eyes, she'd give him that. Hazel, with little flecks of gold. And he seemed about as enthusiastic about this arrangement as she was, which was oddly comforting. "So let me get this straight," Hannah said, standing up and beginning to pace. "You've all decided that James and I should get married to merge your companies, and you thought what? That we'd just go along with it because— Why exactly?" Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "Darling, the Ashford merger isn't just business. It's about preserving our way of life, the family legacy. Everything we've worked for. Everything you've worked for," Hannah corrected. I don't remember being consulted about any of this. That's where I come in. Natalie jumped up, spilling coffee on her magazines. Oopsie. Anyway, I am going to make this the most amazing, most romantic, most Instagram-worthy wedding Boston has ever seen. We're talking #goals, people. James pinched the bridge of his nose. Natalie, please. I've already started a Pinterest board. Hannah and James from arranged to amazing. Look at this color palette. Blush and bashful with hints of champagne and rose gold. It's giving major fairy tale vibes. She thrust her phone at Hannah, who found herself staring at a screen full of pastel flowers and calligraphy that looked like it had been written by a caffeinated kindergartner. The venue, Natalie continued, clearly on a roll. I'm thinking the Four Seasons, but with a twist. We'll have emoji decorations. Heart eyes, ring emojis, maybe some of those little dancing lady ones. Natalie, Charles interrupted gently. Perhaps we should focus on the engagement first before planning the entire wedding. Engagement, Natalie squealed. James, where's the ring? Please tell me you have a ring. This is like the most important part. James looked like a cornered animal. This conversation literally just started 5 minutes ago. No ring? Natalie gasped dramatically. Oh, honey, we need to fix this ASAP. Hannah, what's your ring size? Actually, never mind, I'll guess. You look like a 6, or maybe a 7. James, write this down. Hannah watched this chaos unfold with a mixture of horror and fascination. It was like watching a romantic comedy directed by someone who'd never actually experienced romance. You know what? Hannah said suddenly, her voice cutting through Natalie's ring-size speculation. I need some air. She headed for the French doors that led to the garden, but James's voice stopped her. Hannah, wait. She turned, and for a moment, their eyes met across the room full of well-meaning adults and one very enthusiastic wedding planner. There was something in his expression, understanding maybe, or just shared misery. Look, he said, standing up and straightening his shoulders. I know this is insane. Trust me, if someone had told me this morning that I'd be in an arranged marriage by dinner time, I would have checked them into McLean Hospital. Despite everything, Hannah felt her mouth twitch. McLean's too good for them. I was thinking more Arkham Asylum. See? We already have something in common, Natalie gasped. You guys are having a moment. This is so cute. Should I start the wedding playlist? I've got some amazing songs picked out. Please don't, Hannah and James said simultaneously. They looked at each other in surprise. Then Hannah felt the first genuine smile of the evening cross her face. Okay, she said slowly. Maybe we should talk. Just us. Without the enthusiastic backup. I'll take a coffee, James said. There's a Starbucks on Charles Street that stays open late. Perfect. A coffee date. Natalie bounced on her toes. That's so millennial of you guys. Wait, are you millennials or Gen Z? I can never keep track. Anyway, I'll just tag along to document this historic first. Alone, Natalie, James said firmly. But what if you need a wing woman? Or like, someone to break the ice? I have conversation starters on my phone. Did you know that if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, most people choose their grandmother? It's so sweet. Hannah grabbed her purse. James, I'll meet you outside in 2 minutes. As she headed for the door, she heard her mother's voice behind her. Hannah, darling, where are you going? To have coffee with my arranged fiancé and discuss our corporate merger masquerading as a marriage, Hannah called back without turning around. You know, typical Tuesday night stuff. The front door closed behind her with a satisfying click, muffling the voices inside. The autumn air was crisp against her face, and for the first time all evening, she could breathe normally. James emerged a moment later, looking like he'd escaped from prison. Well, that was, insane. I was going to say surreal, but insane works too. They walked down Beacon Hill in comfortable silence, their footsteps echoing on the cobblestones. The streetlights cast long shadows, and somewhere in the distance a church bell chimed 9 o'clock. So, Hannah said as they approached the coffee shop, on a scale of 1 to completely horrified, how do you feel about being engaged to a complete stranger? James held the door open for her and she caught a whiff of his cologne. something expensive and understated. Honestly, I keep waiting for someone to jump out and tell me this is an elaborate prank. Like, surprise, you've been punked. Marriage edition. The barista, a college-aged kid with enough piercings to set off a metal detector, looked up from his textbook. What can I get you guys? 2 large coffees, Hannah said, and maybe a shot of something stronger. We don't serve alcohol, ma'am. That's probably for the best, James muttered. They found a corner table away from the few other customers, and for a moment, just sat there, processing the evening's events. You know, James said finally, 6 months ago I was dating this girl named Chloe. Marketing executive, really into hot yoga and organic everything. We went on exactly 4 dates before she decided I was emotionally unavailable and started dating my business school roommate. Ouch. The thing is, she wasn't wrong. I am emotionally unavailable. I work 16-hour days, I haven't taken a real vacation in 3 years, and my idea of a romantic evening is ordering sushi and reviewing quarterly reports. Hannah stirred her coffee absently. So why are you telling me this? Because I figure if we're going to do this and it sounds like we don't have much choice, we might as well be honest about who we are. No pretending, no trying to be someone else. Just brutal honesty. She studied his face in the dim coffee shop lighting. There was something appealing about his straightforwardness, even if the circumstances were completely crazy. Okay, she said. Brutal honesty. I haven't been on a real date in 8 months because I'm apparently intimidating to men. I have strong opinions about everything from municipal tax policy to the proper way to load a dishwasher. I sing off-key in the shower. I'm addicted to true crime podcasts, and I once made a guy leave my apartment because he said irregardless in casual conversation. James blinked. That's actually kind of refreshing. What? The neurotic control issues or the grammar fascism? The honesty. Most people I date spend weeks trying to seem perfect. You just laid out your flaws like a business proposal. Speaking of business proposals, Hannah said, what exactly are we supposed to do here? I mean, our parents seem to think this is a done deal, but we haven't actually agreed to anything. James leaned back in his chair. I've been thinking about that. What if we gave it a trial run? A trial run? Like a free subscription to marriage? Sort of. Look, neither of us wants to disappoint our families, right? And honestly, the merger would be good for both companies. So what if we agreed to a 6-month engagement? Get to know each other, see if we can at least be friends, and if it doesn't work out, we call it off and deal with the fallout? Exactly. No pressure, no expectations beyond basic civility. Just see what happens. Hannah considered this, watching the steam rise from her coffee cup. It wasn't the most romantic proposal she'd ever heard, but then again, nothing about this situation was romantic. 6 months, she said slowly. And we set ground rules. No pretending to be in love for anyone else's benefit. No rushing into anything physical. And absolutely no wedding planning until we decide if we're actually going through with this. What about Natalie? Hannah groaned. Oh God, I forgot about Natalie. She's going to want to plan our entire relationship, isn't she? Probably. She once threw me a surprise birthday party when I turned 28. The theme was James through the ages, and she had baby photos of me blown up to poster size. That's actually kind of sweet, in a deeply embarrassing way. She means well. She just has zero filter and the subtlety of a marching band. They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, both lost in thought. Outside, Boston continued its evening rhythm. Couples walking hand in hand, groups of friends heading to bars, normal people living normal lives without arranged marriages complicating everything. You know what the weird part is? Hannah said suddenly. Just one weird part? I actually like you. I mean, this whole situation is completely insane, but you seem decent. Like if we'd met under normal circumstances, I might have said yes if you'd asked me out. James smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him all evening. That's good to know, because I was thinking the same thing. Really? Really, you're smart, you're funny, You called our parents out on their corporate merger scheme, and you didn't run screaming when Natalie started talking about emoji decorations. In my book, that makes you practically a superhero. Hannah felt something warm spread through her chest, and it wasn't just the coffee. So we're really doing this? 6 months of fake engagement to see if we can stand each other long enough for a real marriage? When you put it like that, it sounds even crazier. Good. I like crazy. My life was getting boring anyway. James raised his coffee cup. To the most unconventional engagement in Boston history. Hannah clinked her cup against his. And to surviving whatever wedding planning nightmare Natalie has in store for us. Amen to that. As they walked back up Beacon Hill, Hannah felt something she hadn't expected when this evening started. Hope. Maybe arranged marriages were archaic and ridiculous. Maybe their families were meddling and presumptuous. But maybe, just maybe, something good could come out of this beautiful disaster. Of course, she had no idea what Natalie had planned for tomorrow. If she had, she might have kept walking and never looked back. Hannah woke up to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and what appeared to be a full-scale invasion of her penthouse apartment. The scent of vanilla candles and the sound of Natalie's voice echoing from her living room told her everything she needed to know about how her Thursday morning was going to unfold. Hannah, oh my gosh, you're finally awake. I've been here since 7. Your doorman is so sweet, by the way. I brought him coffee, and I have so much to show you. Hannah stumbled into her kitchen, still in her silk pajamas, to find Natalie surrounded by what looked like the contents of an entire party supply store. There were fabric swatches, flower samples, and enough glitter to blind a small village. Natalie, Hannah said slowly, reaching for her coffee maker like a lifeline. How did you get into my apartment? James gave me the spare key. Well, technically he gave it to me to give to you, but I thought I'd surprise you instead. Surprise. Hannah made a mental note to murder James later. It's 8:30 in the morning. I know. I've been up since 5 working on your engagement party playlist. Wait until you hear this. It's going to be epic. Before Hannah could protest, Natalie had connected her phone to the sound system, and the apartment filled with what could only be described as musical chaos. The first song that blasted through the speakers was Single Ladies by Beyoncé. Hannah stared at Natalie. Seriously? Oh, that's not the right one. Hold on. Natalie frantically scrolled through her phone, her acrylic nails clicking against the screen. The next song was even worse. I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. Natalie. No, that's not right either. Oh. Here we go. Perfect song for an engagement party. The opening chords of Before He Cheats by Carrie Underwood filled the apartment. Hannah turned off the music. Okay, we need to talk. About the playlist? I know it needs work, but I have some amazing ideas. What about Somebody That I Used to Know? It's so emotional. Natalie, that song is about a breakup. Is it? I thought it was about knowing somebody, which you and James are doing, getting to know each other. Hannah poured herself a large cup of coffee and settled into her kitchen bar stool. Honey, have you actually listened to any of these songs? Of course, well, I know all the words, mostly the important parts. This was going to be a long conversation. Let's start with something simple, Hannah said gently. What kind of vibe are we going for at this engagement party? Natalie's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I've been researching engagement party themes on Pinterest. Did you know there are over 50,000 pins for engagement party ideas? Anyway, I'm thinking we go with Love Actually Meets The Bachelor meets. What's that show where they pick the perfect wedding dress? Say Yes to the Dress? That's the one. So picture this. Fairy lights everywhere, rose petals, maybe some of those Instagram-worthy balloon arches, and a live DJ playing all the greatest love songs of all time. Hannah's coffee was definitely not strong enough for this conversation. Natalie, can I ask you something? Anything. We're practically sisters now. Have you ever actually been to an engagement party before? Natalie paused, her enthusiasm dimming slightly. Well, no. But I've seen tons on social media, and I helped my college roommate plan her gender reveal party, and that went totally fine. How did that go exactly? The pink smoke bomb accidentally set off the fire alarm at the country club, but everyone said it was memorable, which is what we want. Right? Memorable. Hannah was beginning to understand why James had looked so panicked whenever Natalie's name came up. Look, Hannah said carefully, I appreciate everything you're trying to do. Really. But maybe we should take a step back and think about what James and I actually want. But that's exactly what I'm doing. I made a list of everything you guys need for the perfect relationship. Natalie pulled out a hot pink notebook covered in rhinestones. Date ideas, conversation starters, couple activities, matching Halloween costumes for next year. Halloween costumes? You guys would be adorable as Beauty and the Beast, or Bonnie and Clyde, or Ross and Rachel. Ross and Rachel broke up like 6 times. But they ended up together. It's all about the journey. Hannah's phone buzzed with a text from James. Is Natalie at your place? She's been sending me engagement party mood boards since 6 a.m. She texted back, she's in my kitchen planning our entire relationship. Send help. On my way. Hide the glitter. Too late for that advice. Natalie had already started spreading what appeared to be an entire craft store's worth of supplies across Hannah's marble kitchen island. Okay, so for centerpieces, I'm thinking mason jars with fairy lights and artificial flowers. Artificial because they last longer, which is symbolic of your eternal love. And maybe some of those cute chalkboard signs with romantic quotes. I found this amazing one on Etsy. Love is patient, love is kind, love is wine. Isn't that perfect? That's not how that Bible verse goes. I'm pretty sure it is. I saw it on a wine glass at Target. Hannah was saved from further theological debate by the sound of her doorbell. She practically sprinted to answer it, finding James on the other side looking like he'd dressed in a hurry. His usually perfect hair was slightly mussed, and he was wearing jeans and a Harvard sweatshirt instead of his typical business attire. Thank goodness you're here, she whispered. She's been planning our entire future since dawn, and I think she's about to start measuring my finger for the wedding ring. I brought reinforcements, James said, stepping aside to reveal a tall woman with auburn hair and an amused expression. Hannah, this is my sister Kate. Kate, meet my arranged fiancé. Charming introduction, Kate said, extending her hand. I've heard so much about this whole situation. Sounds like a romantic comedy waiting to happen. More like a disaster movie, Hannah muttered. Those are the best kind. They walked into the kitchen to find Natalie had somehow multiplied her supplies. There were now tool samples draped over every available surface, and she appeared to be hot gluing something that might have been a tiara. Jamie, Natalie squealed, launching herself at James in a hug that nearly knocked him over. Perfect timing. I was just showing Hannah the engagement party decorations. Look at this adorable he asked, she said yes banner. She held up what looked like a craft project gone wrong. The letters were crooked, there was glitter everywhere, and one of the hearts had fallen off entirely. It's very sparkly, James said diplomatically. I know, right? And wait until you see the photo booth props. I made mustaches on sticks, giant lips, speech bubbles with cute sayings like, I'm with my lobster. Lobster? Kate asked. You know, like from Friends, when Phoebe says we're all each other's lobsters, it's so romantic. Hannah and James exchanged a look that Kate didn't miss. Natalie, Kate said smoothly, this is all amazing, but I'm wondering if we should maybe ask Hannah and James what kind of party they actually want before we plan everything. Oh, but I already know. They want something magical and romantic and Instagram-worthy. All couples want that. But what if they don't? Kate pressed gently. What if they want something smaller, more intimate? Natalie looked genuinely confused. But why would they want that? This is their engagement. It's supposed to be huge and perfect and... She trailed off, looking between Hannah and James. You guys do want a big party, right? Hannah felt a pang of sympathy for Natalie's crestfallen expression. Natalie, it's not that we don't appreciate everything you're doing. We do, James added quickly. Really, it's just that maybe we should slow down a little and figure out what works for everyone. But I already sent out the invitations. Everyone froze. You what? Hannah asked. I sent out the invitations. To everyone. Your family, James's family, all the family friends, People from your work. People from James's work. I got the contact lists from your moms. The party's this Saturday at the Four Seasons. Hannah sat down heavily on her bar stool. Natalie, we haven't even confirmed that we're having an engagement party. But of course you are. You're engaged. That's what engaged people do. And you booked the Four Seasons? James asked faintly. Well, technically I put it on your credit card, Jamie. But don't worry. I negotiated a great deal. Only $12,000 for the ballroom, plus catering, plus the DJ, plus $12,000? Hannah's voice rose an octave. That's actually not bad for the Four Seasons, Kate murmured. Not helping, James muttered. Natalie's lower lip began to tremble. I just wanted to do something nice for you guys. I thought if I made everything perfect, maybe you'd fall in love for real, and it would be like a fairy tale, and... She burst into tears, causing her false eyelashes to start sliding down her cheeks. Hannah felt her heart break a little. Despite the chaos and the complete lack of boundaries, Natalie genuinely cared. She was just enthusiastically misguided. Hey, Hannah said softly, moving to put an arm around Natalie's shoulders. It's okay. We're not mad. Speak for yourself, James muttered, but his expression softened when he saw Natalie's distress. I just want you guys to be happy, Natalie sniffled. I've never planned an engagement party before, and I looked up so much stuff online and everyone makes it look so easy, but maybe I'm not good at this. You're good at caring, Hannah interrupted. And that matters more than perfect decorations or the right playlist. But I picked terrible songs, didn't I? They're all breakup songs. Some of them, James admitted. But hey, at least you didn't pick My Heart Will Go On. That would have been really awkward. I did pick that one, Natalie whispered. It's number 17 on the playlist. Kate started laughing first, then Hannah, then even James. Soon all four of them were laughing so hard that Natalie's tears turned into giggles. Okay, Hannah said when she could breathe again. Here's what we're going to do. We can't cancel the party now. Thank goodness, Natalie breathed. But we're going to make some changes. First, new playlist. Kate, you're in charge of music. Second, we're scaling back the decorations. Elegant, not explosion in a craft store. I can do elegant, Natalie said eagerly. I have Pinterest boards for elegant. And third, James added, we're doing this as partners, all of us. No more surprises, no more secret planning, we're a team. A team, Natalie clapped her hands. I love teams. We need matching t-shirts. Let's start with matching sanity, Hannah said. But yes, we're a team. Kate pulled out her phone. Okay, team meeting. What do you guys actually want from this party? Hannah looked at James, who shrugged. Something that doesn't make us look like complete frauds? Low bar but achievable, Kate said, making a note. What else? Music that doesn't reference divorce or death, Hannah added. Obviously, Natalie said, pulling out her bedazzled phone. I'm deleting the playlist right now. What about All by Myself? That's about being yourself? Natalie, James said gently. That's also a breakup song. Seriously? But it has myself in the title. That sounds positive. Hannah realized this was going to be a very long week. But as she watched Natalie frantically researching non-breakup love songs, while Kate tried to salvage the decoration situation, and James attempted to calculate how much financial damage had already been done, she felt something unexpected. Affection. This crazy, chaotic, well-meaning woman was going to be part of her life for the next 6 months, possibly longer. And despite the disasters and the complete lack of boundaries, there was something endearing about Natalie's absolute determination to create happiness for everyone around her, even if she had no idea how to actually do it. You know what? Hannah said suddenly. I think this is going to be fine. Fine? James looked at the glitter-covered chaos of her kitchen. Hannah, there's enough craft supplies here to stock a small art school. We have an engagement party in 3 days that we never agreed to, and the playlist currently includes I Will Survive and the Titanic theme song. I know, Hannah grinned. It's perfect. James stared at her. Have you lost your mind? Probably, but think about it. What's the worst that could happen? Kate and James exchanged a look. Please don't ask that question, Kate said. In my experience, the universe takes that as a challenge. But Hannah was already caught up in the possibility. Maybe disaster could be fun. Maybe chaos could be charming. Maybe, just maybe, Natalie's completely wrong approach to everything might somehow stumble into being completely right. Of course, she had no idea that Natalie had already ordered a fog machine and a dozen white doves for the party. Some surprises were better left as surprises. Saturday arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train carrying fireworks. Hannah stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting her navy cocktail dress for the 5th time, and wondering if it was too late to fake food poisoning. The Four Seasons ballroom awaited along with 200 guests, one overly ambitious playlist, and whatever surprises Natalie had managed to cook up in the past 48 hours despite their no more surprises agreement. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. Please tell me you're ready for this. She texted back. Define ready. I'm dressed, caffeinated, and have accepted my fate. That counts, right? Good enough. See you at the Four Seasons. Try not to run. No promises. Hannah grabbed her purse and headed downstairs where her driver was waiting with the kind of practiced patience that came from years of dealing with Whitmore family events. The ride to the hotel was blissfully quiet, giving her 20 minutes to mentally prepare for whatever theatrical production Natalie had orchestrated. She should have prepared harder. The Four Seasons ballroom had been transformed into what could only be described as a Pinterest board explosion. There were fairy lights draped from every possible surface, creating a canopy that pulsed with soft golden light. Rose petals covered the floor in heart-shaped patterns, and balloon arches in blush and rose gold framed the entrance like something out of a wedding magazine. It was actually beautiful. Hannah! Natalie appeared from behind a towering arrangement of white roses wearing a sequined dress that caught the light like a disco ball. You're here. Perfect timing. The photographer just arrived and the DJ is setting up and oh my gosh, wait until you see the cake. There's a cake? Of course there's a cake. You can't have an engagement party without cake. Come see. Before Hannah could protest, Natalie had grabbed her arm and was pulling her toward a table that held what appeared to be a 3-tiered masterpiece covered in sugar flowers and delicate piping. It's beautiful, Hannah admitted, genuinely impressed. Natalie, this is... Surprise! The shout came from behind her, followed by what sounded like a small explosion. Hannah spun around to see James standing near the entrance, covered in what appeared to be pink glitter and looking like he'd been attacked by a craft store. Oh no, Natalie gasped. The confetti cannons weren't supposed to go off until later. Confetti cannons? Hannah asked weakly. Just 2. Well, 4. Okay, 6, but they're really small ones. Jamie, are you okay? James brushed pink glitter out of his hair, leaving sparkles on his black suit that made him look like a very formal unicorn. I'm fine. Just surprised. Very, very surprised. A woman in a Four Seasons uniform approached with what appeared to be a small handheld vacuum. Sir, we can help you with that. Thanks, James said, standing still while she efficiently deglittered him. Natalie, what else should I know about? Any fog machines, laser shows, flash mobs? Natalie's expression turned guilty. Well, funny you should mention fog machines. Natalie, it's just a little one, and the doves are really well trained. Doves? Hannah and James said simultaneously. White doves, for the romantic effect. They're supposed to be released at the end of the party when you guys, well, when you do whatever couples do at the end of engagement parties. Kiss, dance, propose again. Hannah felt a headache forming. Natalie, we can't release doves indoors. Why not? Because they're birds. They'll fly into the chandeliers, knock over the food, and probably traumatize half the guests. But they're trained. The guy at the dove rental place said they're very professional. There's a dove rental place? James asked. Apparently there's a rental place for everything in Boston. Kate's voice came from behind them. She appeared wearing an elegant black dress and an expression of barely contained amusement. I just saw them bringing in what I think is a chocolate fountain. Ooh, that arrived. Natalie clapped her hands. Wait until you see where I put it. She led them through the ballroom, weaving between tables that had been set with enough flowers to supply a medium-sized wedding. Hannah had to admit that despite the chaos, everything looked stunning. Natalie might not understand subtlety, but she definitely understood spectacle. The chocolate fountain was positioned near the dance floor, surrounded by an assortment of fruits, marshmallows, and what appeared to be tiny engagement ring cookies. Those are so cute, Hannah said, picking up one of the cookies. Where did you find these? I made them. Well, I designed them and the hotel kitchen made them. Do you think they look like real rings? The cookies were actually quite clever. Sugar cookies shaped like engagement rings with white chocolate diamonds that sparkled under the lights. They're perfect, Hannah said, and meant it. Natalie beamed. Really? You like them? I love them. This whole thing it's amazing, Natalie, really. For a moment, Natalie's usual manic energy quieted into something softer. I just wanted it to be special for you guys. I know this whole situation is weird, but I thought maybe if the party was magical enough, it might make us fall in love for real, James asked gently. Something like that. Natalie shrugged. I know it's silly, but I believe in fairy tales. Even arranged ones. Hannah felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. There was something deeply touching about Natalie's absolute faith in happy endings, even when she had no idea how to actually create them. It's not silly, Hannah said. It's sweet. The ballroom doors opened and guests began filtering in. Hannah recognized most of them: family, friends, business associates, people from both their social circles who had probably received Natalie's invitation with varying degrees of confusion and curiosity. Showtime, James murmured, straightening his tie. For the next hour, Hannah and James worked the room like the well-trained society offspring they were. They smiled, shook hands, accepted congratulations, and fielded questions about their whirlwind romance with the kind of diplomatic non-answers that made perfect sense at a Boston social gathering. How long have you two been dating? Asked Mrs. Henderson, a family friend who had probably known Hannah since she was in diapers. It feels like we've known each other forever, Hannah said smoothly, which was technically true if you counted the 3 conversations they'd had since Monday. And the proposal? Was it romantic? This from James's great-aunt Eleanor, a formidable woman who looked like she could see through any lie. It was very us, James said, which was also technically true. The system worked well until Natalie decided to help. Oh, Mrs. Henderson. Natalie appeared at Hannah's elbow like a sequined tornado. Did Hannah tell you about how they met? It's so romantic. Their parents arranged a dinner party, Hannah interrupted quickly. Our parents arranged a dinner party where we met. Right, a dinner party where they arranged for us to sit next to each other, James said, smoothly cutting off what was sure to be a complete revelation of their situation. Mrs. Henderson looked confused. How nice. And how long ago was this dinner party? Last week, Natalie said helpfully. There was a moment of silence while Mrs. Henderson processed this information. You got engaged after knowing each other for a week? She asked faintly. When you know, Natalie chirped. It's like that movie with Sandra Bullock, the one where she pretends to be engaged to her boss. The proposal? Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows rose toward her hairline. That's the one. Except this is real. Mostly. Hannah grabbed Natalie's arm. Natalie, didn't you want to check on the thing, with the other thing? Oh, the fog machine. Yes. It's supposed to start at 9, but I should make sure it's working properly. Last time I used one, it set off the smoke alarm at my neighbor's baby shower. She bustled away, leaving Hannah and James to deal with Mrs. Henderson's increasingly suspicious expression. A week, Mrs. Henderson repeated slowly. We're very decisive people, James said. Apparently. After Mrs. Henderson moved on to interrogate someone else's life choices, Hannah turned to James. We need to have a talk with Natalie about discretion. What's discretion? James asked. I don't think that word exists in her vocabulary. Before Hannah could respond, the lights dimmed and music began playing. Not the carefully curated playlist Kate had assembled, but something that sounded suspiciously like, "Is that the Titanic song?" James asked. "My Heart Will Go On," Hannah confirmed. She said she deleted it from the playlist. She lied. As Celine Dion's voice soared through the ballroom, couples began moving onto the dance floor. Hannah and James stood frozen, realizing that as the guests of honor, they were expected to dance. "I don't suppose you know how to waltz to the Titanic theme song?" James asked. "That's not really a skill they teach at Harvard Business School." "Pity. Seems like it would be useful." They made their way onto the dance floor, where James placed one hand on Hannah's waist and took her hand with the other. They began a careful waltz that had nothing to do with the music and everything to do with not embarrassing themselves in front of 200 people. "You know," James said as they swayed together, "for a complete disaster, this isn't terrible." "The party or the engagement?" "Both, actually." Hannah looked up at him. This close, she could see the gold flecks in his hazel eyes and smell his cologne. Something warm and expensive that made her want to lean closer. "James," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Shoot." If we had met under normal circumstances, at a coffee shop or through friends or anywhere that wasn't an arranged marriage situation, do you think we would have dated? James was quiet for a moment, spinning her slowly as they moved across the floor. "Honestly, I think I would have been too intimidated to ask you out." "Intimidated? By me?" "You're brilliant, you're beautiful, you speak 3 languages, you have strong opinions about municipal tax policy, and you probably make more money than I do. That's a pretty intimidating combination." "I only speak 2 languages fluently," Hannah corrected. "My French is terrible." "Only 2 languages, see? Much less intimidating." They danced in comfortable silence for a few moments, and Hannah found herself actually enjoying the evening. The music was ridiculous, the decorations were over the top, and half the guests were probably gossiping about their whirlwind romance. But there was something magical about it all. That's when the fog machine activated. The first wisps of fog were actually quite pretty, creating a dreamy atmosphere on the dance floor. But within minutes, the entire ballroom was filling with thick white smoke that made it impossible to see more than a few feet in any direction. "Natalie," James called into the fog. "Turn it off." "I can't find the switch," came Natalie's panicked voice from somewhere in the white cloud. "It wasn't supposed to make this much fog." Guests began coughing and stumbling around, trying to find their way out of what had become a very elegant fog bank. Hannah heard someone crash into the chocolate fountain, followed by a string of words that definitely weren't appropriate for a Four Seasons event. "This way!" Kate's voice cut through the chaos. "Everyone follow my voice. Exit is to your left." Hannah felt James's hand tighten on hers as they stumbled toward what they hoped was an exit. The fog was so thick now that she could barely see him, even though he was right next to her. "Hannah!" Natalie's voice came from their right. "I found the switch. Everything's going to be..." The fog machine made a mechanical wheezing sound, followed by a small explosion that sent even more fog billowing through the room. "That doesn't sound good," James muttered. The fire alarm began blaring. "Definitely not good," Hannah agreed. Emergency lights activated, casting an eerie glow through the fog as the sprinkler system engaged. Within seconds, everyone in the ballroom was soaked. The fog was dissipating and 200 guests were standing around looking like they'd survived a very upscale natural disaster. Hannah looked at James, whose perfect hair was now plastered to his head, and whose expensive suit was dripping with sprinkler water and pink glitter. She probably looked just as ridiculous, her carefully styled hair hanging in wet strands, her cocktail dress clinging uncomfortably. And then she started laughing. It began as a small giggle, but quickly escalated into full-blown can't-breathe, tears streaming down her face laughter. James stared at her for a moment, then began laughing too. Soon they were both standing in the middle of the disaster zone, laughing so hard they could barely stay upright. "This is insane," Hannah gasped between giggles. "Completely insane." James agreed. Our engagement party just got shut down by the fire department. Best engagement party ever. Natalie appeared through the dissipating fog, her sequined dress now looking more like a sad disco ball, her elaborate hairstyle completely destroyed. She looked absolutely miserable. I'm so sorry, she wailed. I ruined everything. The fog machine was supposed to be romantic, and the doves are probably traumatized and everyone's wet and… Hannah grabbed Natalie's hands. Natalie, stop. But I ruined your party. No, Hannah said firmly. You gave us the most memorable engagement party in Boston history. Look around. Do you see anyone who's bored? Anyone who's going to forget this? Natalie looked around the ballroom, where guests were laughing, sharing towels, and taking selfies with their fog machine hair. Mrs. Henderson was posing with the chocolate fountain disaster, grinning like a teenager. They're having fun? Natalie asked uncertainly. They're having a blast, James confirmed. This is going to be the party everyone talks about for years. Really? Really, Hannah said. This is perfect. It's chaotic and ridiculous and completely over the top, and it's exactly what our fake engagement needed. Fake engagement? Natalie's eyes widened. Hannah froze. In all the chaos and laughter, she'd completely forgotten to filter her words. Did you just say fake engagement? Natalie repeated slowly. James and Hannah looked at each other, then at Natalie's confused face, then at the room full of witnesses who were all within hearing distance. Well, James said finally, this should be interesting. Hannah couldn't argue with that assessment, but as she looked around the fog-damaged, water-soaked, glitter-covered ballroom full of laughing guests, she realized something important. She didn't want this to be fake anymore. She just had no idea how to tell James that, or how to explain it to Natalie, who was still staring at them with the expression of dawning realization and what looked suspiciously like plotting. Some disasters, Hannah was learning, were better than the best-laid plans, even if they did involve fire departments and traumatized doves. The emergency vehicles had finally left. The traumatized doves had been safely relocated to what Hannah hoped was a very good therapy program for birds, and the Four Seasons cleaning crew was working miracles with the fog machine residue. Hannah, James, and Natalie sat in Hannah's penthouse living room at 2 a.m, still wearing their damp party clothes and processing what had undoubtedly been the most eventful fake engagement party in Boston history. Natalie hadn't spoken in 45 minutes. She just sat cross-legged on Hannah's white sofa, her sequined dress creating small puddles, staring at them with the intensity of someone trying to solve a particularly complex equation. Finally, she broke the silence. So let me get this straight, Natalie said slowly, her usual bubbly energy replaced by something Hannah had never seen before. Focus. Your parents arranged this marriage for business reasons. You two agreed to a 6-month fake engagement to see if you could stand each other, and I've been planning your entire romantic future based on a complete lie. That's basically accurate, James said carefully. And you didn't think to tell me this because… Hannah and James exchanged a look. Because you're really enthusiastic? Hannah offered weakly. Because we thought you'd try to fix it, James added. Because we were afraid you'd tell our parents? Hannah continued. All of the above? Natalie considered this, nodding slowly. Okay, those are all fair points. I am really enthusiastic, I do try to fix things, and I definitely would have told your parents. She paused. But Hannah, did you or did you not just say you don't want this to be fake anymore? Hannah felt heat rise in her cheeks. I might have said something along those lines. In front of 200 people, who were all distracted by the fog in the fire department, Hannah protested. Mrs. Henderson wasn't distracted. I saw her pull out her phone and start taking notes. Oh God. Hannah buried her face in her hands. This is going to be all over the Back Bay Gossip Network by morning. Already is, Natalie said, holding up her phone. I've got 17 text messages asking if you two are really getting married or if this was some elaborate performance art piece. James leaned forward. What did you tell them? Nothing yet. I wanted to hear the whole story first. Natalie set down her phone and looked directly at Hannah. So the real question is, do you actually have feelings for James? Or was that just fog machine-induced hysteria? Hannah looked at James, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. That's complicated. No, it's not, Natalie said firmly. Either you like him or you don't. This isn't rocket science. Says the woman who picked I Will Survive for an engagement party playlist, James muttered. Hey, that was a learning experience, and don't change the subject. Hannah, answer the question. Hannah took a deep breath. After 3 days of chaos, disasters, and enough glitter to blind a small army, she was apparently going to have the most important conversation of her life in her living room at 2 a.m. while wearing a damp cocktail dress. Yes, she said quietly. I have feelings for James. The room went completely silent. Well, James said finally, that's unexpected. Hannah's heart sank. Unexpected bad or unexpected good? Unexpected complicated. Oh, for crying out loud? Natalie threw her hands up in exasperation. James Ashford, are you or are you not attracted to the brilliant, beautiful, funny woman sitting 3 feet away from you? Natalie, answer the question, and don't give me some wishy-washy businessman response about market conditions and quarterly projections. Do you like Hannah? Yes or no? James looked at Hannah, and for a moment she saw something vulnerable in his expression. Yes, he said. I like Hannah. A lot, actually. Then what's the problem? Natalie demanded. The problem, James said, running a hand through his still damp hair, is that this whole situation is insane. We've known each other for less than a week. Our parents arranged our marriage like we're living in a Jane Austen novel. And now we're supposed to figure out if we're compatible for actual marriage based on 3 coffee dates and a disaster-prone engagement party. Some people get married after knowing each other for years and still end up divorced, Natalie pointed out. And some people know within 5 minutes of meeting someone that they're perfect for each other. That's not real life, Natalie. That's rom-coms. Hello, what do you think is happening right now? This entire situation is a rom-com. You've got the arranged marriage, the meddling family members, the disastrous party, the confession in the rain. It wasn't rain, it was sprinklers, Hannah corrected. Sprinklers, rain, whatever. The point is, you're living in a romantic comedy, and in romantic comedies people fall in love despite impossible circumstances and live happily ever after. James shook his head. Real life doesn't work that way. Says who? Natalie stood up, her sequined dress catching the lamplight. James, you're a smart guy, but you're thinking about this all wrong. You're treating love like a business decision, like you need to analyze the market conditions and assess the risk factors before you commit. Because that's how smart people make important decisions. No, that's how scared people avoid making important decisions. Hannah watched this exchange with growing fascination. She'd never seen Natalie like this, passionate, articulate, and completely focused. It was like seeing a completely different person. Natalie, Hannah said slowly, where is this coming from? Natalie's expression softened. You really want to know? My parents had an arranged marriage. Grandma Ashford set them up when they were 22, and they thought it was the stupidest idea in the world. Dad was convinced Mom was too good for him, Mom thought Dad was boring, and they both spent 6 months trying to get out of it. What happened? James asked. They fell in love. Not despite the arrangement, but because of it. Because they were forced to actually spend time together and get to know each other, instead of playing dating games and trying to impress each other with fake versions of themselves. Hannah felt something click into place. That's why you've been so invested in this. It's not just about wedding planning. I've been trying to recreate their story, Natalie admitted. All the disasters, all the chaos. I thought if I could create enough situations where you guys had to rely on each other, you'd figure out that you're perfect together. James stared at her. You've been sabotaging us on purpose. Not sabotaging. Facilitating. There's a difference. What difference? Sabotaging would be malicious. I was being helpful. Okay, maybe the fog machine was overkill, but everything else was carefully planned to bring you together. Hannah's mind raced back through the past week. The terrible playlist that made us laugh together. The over-the-top decorations that made us bond over shared horror. The confetti cannon that covered James in glitter, so he'd look ridiculous, and I'd see his sense of humor. Exactly, and it worked. You guys went from strangers who barely tolerated each other to people who were having actual feelings. By lying to us, James said, but he didn't sound angry anymore. He sounded impressed. By creating opportunities, Natalie corrected. I just gave you guys situations where you could be yourselves instead of perfect society people trying to make a good impression. Hannah looked at James. She's not wrong. Every time something went catastrophically wrong, we ended up laughing about it and actually talking to each other. The coffee shop conversation after the disastrous family meeting, James said slowly. The playlist crisis that turned into a team-building exercise. Dancing in the fog while the fire department evacuated the ballroom. So what you're telling me, James said to Natalie, is that you're some kind of romantic mastermind who engineered our entire relationship through strategic disaster management? Natalie grinned, and for the first time all evening, she looked like her usual bubbly self. When you put it like that, I sound way cooler than I actually am. But yeah, basically. That's... James shook his head. That's either brilliant or completely insane. Why can't it be both? Hannah asked. The best ideas usually are. They sat in silence for a moment, processing this revelation. Hannah felt like she was seeing the past week through a completely different lens. Every disaster, every awkward moment, every time she and James had found themselves laughing together instead of running away. It had all been orchestrated by a woman who believed in fairy tales enough to create one. So, Natalie said finally, now that we've established that I'm a romantic genius and you two are perfect for each other, what are we going to do about it? What do you mean? Hannah asked. I mean, are you going to keep pretending this is fake? Or are you going to admit that somewhere between the terrible playlist and the fog machine disaster, you actually fell for each other? Hannah looked at James, who was already looking at her. There was something different in his expression now, softer, more open. Hannah, he said quietly, can I ask you something? Anything. If I were to kiss you right now, would you kiss me back? Hannah's heart did something acrobatic in her chest. Only one way to find out. James stood up and crossed to where she was sitting, extending his hand. She took it, letting him pull her to her feet. They were standing close enough that she could see the water droplets still clinging to his eyelashes from the sprinkler system. Close enough to smell his cologne mixed with the faint scent of fog machine residue. This is crazy, he murmured. Completely insane. She agreed. We've known each other for 6 days. Less than a week. Our families arranged this like we're living in the 19th century. Totally archaic. And I'm pretty sure I'm falling in love with you. Hannah's breath caught. That is crazy. The good kind of crazy? The best kind of crazy. James cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. So if I kiss you now, what happens to our 6-month trial engagement? I guess we'll have to renegotiate the terms. I can live with that. He leaned down and kissed her, soft and sweet and tasting like champagne and possibility. Hannah felt something inside her chest unfold like a flower blooming, warm and bright and completely unexpected. When they broke apart, Natalie was wiping her eyes with a damp napkin. Okay, she sniffled. That was beautiful. But can we talk logistics? Because technically you guys are still engaged, your parents still think this is a business arrangement, and Mrs. Henderson is probably already planning your baby shower. Hannah laughed, feeling giddy and lightheaded and completely happy. One crisis at a time, Natalie. But what are we going to tell our families? James asked. The truth, Hannah said, that arranged marriages are completely archaic and ridiculous, and sometimes they work anyway. And that love is weird and unpredictable, and doesn't follow any logical timeline, James added. And that disaster-prone engagement parties are way more fun than perfect ones, Natalie chimed in. Speaking of which, Hannah said, we owe you an apology. For what? For not trusting you with the truth from the beginning. You've been trying to help us this whole time, and we treated you like you were just enthusiastic comic relief. Natalie waved her hand dismissively. Honey, I am enthusiastic comic relief, but I'm also really good at reading people, and I could tell from day one that you two were perfect for each other. You just needed a little help figuring it out. A little help? James laughed. Natalie, you practically staged a military operation. Whatever works. The important thing is that it did work. You guys are happy, you're in love, and you're going to have the most amazing wedding, which I am absolutely planning, and this time I'm doing it right. No fog machines, Hannah said quickly. No doves, James added. No confetti cannons, no emoji decorations, and definitely no I Will Survive on the playlist. Hannah continued. Natalie pouted. You guys are no fun. But fine, I'll keep it classy. Mostly. Hannah looked around her living room, at the water stains on her furniture, the glitter still sparkling in the lamplight, and Natalie's sequined dress creating small puddles on her white sofa. A week ago, this chaos would have horrified her. Now it felt like home. You know what? She said, snuggling closer to James on the couch. I think I like chaos. Good, James said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Because I have a feeling that with Natalie in our lives, we're going to get plenty of it. Hey, Natalie protested. I'm reformed. I'm going to be the most organized, most professional wedding planner you've ever seen. Uh-huh, Hannah said skeptically. And what's that behind your back? Natalie looked guilty. What? Nothing. Natalie. Okay, fine, it's sparklers for the exit, but they're really small sparklers, and I already checked with the fire department. Hannah and James looked at each other and burst out laughing. You know what? James said. Bring on the sparklers. What's the worst that could happen? Please don't ask that question, Hannah said, but she was smiling. The universe might be listening. Let it listen, James said, pulling her closer. I'm ready for whatever comes next. As it turned out, what came next was a lifetime of beautiful disasters, perfect imperfections, and enough love to survive even Natalie's most enthusiastic wedding planning efforts. Though they did have to ban her from Pinterest for the month before the actual wedding. Some precautions were just common sense. The end. 6 months later, Hannah and James were married in a ceremony that was elegant, sophisticated, and mercifully fog machine-free. Natalie cried through the entire event, Mrs. Henderson caught the bouquet despite being 73 years old, and the doves that were supposed to be released during the recessional somehow ended up spelling out love in the sky entirely by accident. Nobody questioned it. At that point, they all believed in fairy tales.